Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Your magical kiss will take me just so far. Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Don't leave me like this, dangling from a star. Set me all aflame and it's so pleasing. It sure would be a shame if you were only teasing. So my love, before I go, turn the lights way down low and talk to me. Talk to me, talk to me.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Don McKeag Show. We are here in Plymouth PAC. I'm here with my pal Kenny Bukes in the control room, where we will take any calls if you should want to come on the air and talk to me. I have been doing this. This is our 40th show for those who have born with us. We've got a tough hour from 6 to 7. It's supper hour, it's news hour. But we hear periodically from certain people, several people, who do watch on a regular basis, and we thank them very much. And I try to be informative, educational, controversial when need be, but most of all, just to get people thinking and doing something with their thoughts. This was written in 1867 by Alan Ashley Pitt. The man who follows the crowd will usually get no further than the crowd. The man who walks alone is likely to find himself in places no one has ever been before. Creativity in living is not without its attendant difficulties, for peculiarity breeds contempt. And the unfortunate thing about being ahead of your time is that when people finally realize you were right, they'll say it was obvious all along. You have two choices in life. You can dissolve into the mainstream, or you can be distinct. To be distinct, you must be different. To be different, you must strive to be what no one else but you can be. This is something that I read. I do my radio show on Saturdays, but I encourage you to read this to young people. I encourage teachers to read it to their class, because we have become a society now. One of our real problems is the loss of individuality, the loss of developing. Even though we have people, no, don't get me wrong now, thank God we are great enough to absorb a political change that has brought us into the mess and the maelstrom we're in now, where it's a handout mentality for too many people. We still have those young people who are brought up properly, for one. Secondly, they have that unknown quality that God gives them, I believe, where they are going to strive, they are going to become successful and great at what they do, despite the system, not because of it. Today, I'm going to just jump into a bunch of things, but we'll get to Donald Trump, because he is someone who is being vilified. I'm vilified. I've been on the radio on station WXTK 95.1 on the Cape for over 20 years in the mornings, and now I'm on Saturdays. Some of you I know listen and call in, and that's how you found this show. But a system becomes very dangerous when it's run by government. And this is why our founding fathers were so very concerned and tried so hard in our Constitution to limit government. The trouble is, after 200 years, as Thomas Jefferson warned us, so have other political knowledgeable people over the 200 or 300 years have said it. Once certain men and women get into control, all bets are off. This is why we end up getting dictatorships and having governments that turn into groups of people who basically don't follow the laws of the land that made the land great, which is this country. I get frustrated at this stage because myself and my friends have seen the difference. We know what it was like back in the 50s and 60s when we were kids. And I'm not saying things were perfect. There were things wrong because we're dealing with mankind. But when you see today what is accepted in behavior, when you see today what is accepted in people not caring about becoming anything or allowed to not even work, never mind find work, when you have a society that today we have numbers that are incredibly bad for the future, and they've been going up and up with no attempt by the Democratic Party to stop. Contrarily, the Democratic Party has continued. I was a Democrat almost all my life. I am still an independent. I am a non-political person now, more than ever. And I just cannot believe those of us that were young when John F. Kennedy became president. It was so exciting. I tell the young people and friends that I have, I wish you'd have seen the difference of what it was like to have a young, vibrant president that said things differently, did things differently, believed in the country again. Why? Because he had suffered personally, physically, been in a war, traveled in Europe, saw the difference. We don't have that today. We have people, I've said this before. This is another reason I like Trump and those others who just are not politicians. We have too many lawyers in politics. We have too many people who've never made a payroll. They've never had to take a chance. They've never done anything except collect a check from you and me. Period. Doesn't make them bad people, but it certainly doesn't make them qualified people. And now, with the billions of dollars of waste, imagine if what this country could do. Just imagine if every single town went out and said, where can we save money? And gave the department some kind of a bonus. Now, I'm going to tell you something. You may not like this. I like Plymouth. I'm living in Carver. I'm from Weymouth, but I like Plymouth. I like the people in Plymouth, but I love the history of Plymouth. And I'm not saying it's only Plymouth, but I'm telling you right now, this road situation in Plymouth, this is absolutely immoral. How's that hit you? If there's town people want to hear me, I'm telling you. If you're a town worker, I'm telling you. It is immoral. I've watched it now for over 2 years. Here it is. I'm speaking for the business community and for the employees that the business community has, whose salaries, by the way, whose pay comes from the volume of sales they do or from the profit of the business, not from the town paying them or the state paying them or the federal government paying them. Here it is, the end of the summer again, and there are still construction people on the main entries into Plymouth. Go by there. I go by several mornings. See how many are working at 9 o'clock in the morning. See how many are working. And that's been going on for 2 years. Don't hand me any excuses. It is a disgrace. People, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Plymouth is where it all began. To think that for the second summer, People can fly in from all over the world wanting to see the Mayflower, wanting to see where the founding fathers began, where the Pilgrims began. And they've got a line of traffic with 3 guys smoking a cigarette, leaning on a shovel at 8:30 in the morning. And I've watched it, so don't tell me it hasn't been happening. There has been no supervision that I know of. There's been no attempt to speed this thing up so that the summers could be a wild, nice, good time for the Main Street businesses, for the Plymouth residences. I've been diverted 10 different times, as you have. And don't tell me that isn't part of the sickness of this culture. There's not one politician has the guts to go at the, I don't care what company or what it is. The bridge is no better. And that's why I turned against unions, because it's union mentality. Oh, geez, don't take your time here. We don't want this job to get done too soon. The hell with the private sector. The hell with the people who owned shops, auto body shops, other shops, all up and down there. What is it, Samoset? What's that street, Kenny? Coming in. Samoset Street. What a disgrace. They should give every one of those property owners half their taxes back. Paying for schools, paying for all this expenditure by the town, and they can't get those damn roads fixed. They should have been done in May or June. They should have been working at night. But heaven forbid you care about the private sector that earns the money and pays the taxes so you give the raises to the police, the teachers, and the firemen. I don't intend to insult those public employees, but I'm telling you, there's an insensitivity to who pays the bills. Detail after detail after detail of police. Day after day after day. And the one that really touched me off is I'm coming down from, this was in Plymouth, so it's everywhere. I live in Carver over by Cranberry, where Cranberry Road goes all the way across and comes out on 28 in Wareham. So I leave Tremont Street, drive the entire, past, Kenny, past Makepeace, where they've got the little store there.
Yes.
Now, you know how long that is from Tremont Street in South Carver over to Route 28 in Wareham.
That's.
I get all the way over. Now, there's no way, there's only one way.
That's it.
2 cops is out there in the road, and they said, no, you got to go back. So, of course, the Irishman loses it. And I get out and I say, you're telling me that I got to turn around and go all the way back to where I came from? Yeah, you do. I said, you mean it? Is it asking too much that there be a sign posted at least halfway down there that somebody could have driven down from the street department or the DPW? They don't give a sweet one about the person. But I'm telling you, this road situation, this downtown situation is appalling. And you can make all the excuses, you Plymouth magistrates and politicians, every single one of you. You're just as bad as the idiocies up in Boston, where nobody has the you-know-whats to stand up and say, hey, what's with the roads? How long is it going to take this year? And again, that's what Donald Trump, why he's getting so much following. And let me tell you, they're Republicans, Democrats, Independents, they're black, they're Hispanic. Even though that stinking rotten television media does their best to minimize how many people are following him. And why? I know he's arrogant. I know he says things that make you cringe, but he's telling the truth. For once, somebody's having the guts. They don't have the guts in a town. So when you badmouth politicians, you look at yourself. You don't speak in town meeting. You don't say one word over expenditures that you know are out of control. Tax rates that are out of control. Elderly people having to sell their house, give up their house. And then in come illegals, and you provide housing for them. It's idiocy. It's idiocy, lunacy, and immorality. Fallen for this do-good, liberal crapola that's put us in a one hell of a mess. And I'm one of the few that speaks about it, and I don't make any apologies for it. We have a country that better wake up, and it's middle-class America that's trying to wake up. All you do, too many people today, they just point fingers at somebody else, and they don't even point the fingers at themselves. They don't look at, what have I done? Kenny and I do this little show. We don't get paid. I do a radio show. I get paid. But I do it with that naivety that I might just help somebody watching me or listening to me feel just a little bit better that they're not wrong. And I'm right. How's that? I'm not boasting. Trump knows he's right. When he talks about China, he talks about us owning China, I think 15 or 20 trillion dollars. 15 or 20 trillion. And we're going to be tough with China if it comes push to shove. Oh, sure. Put yourself in that shape. Your brother-in-law loaned you $50,000. Are you going to tell him what to do if he comes over and wants to stay at your house? Or come on. Doesn't matter. As long as your little kingdom is safe. As long as your kids are being able to get into school. Doesn't matter that your neighbor's kid can't get into school. Doesn't matter that these colleges are taking big money from foreign parents to get their kids into Harvard and all these mucky-muck liberals leaning, telling your kids how they're supposed to think. But I went to UMass. I've known for years. And I've written to them. I wouldn't give them a nickel. How's that? I wouldn't give a college a nickel. And I got a good education at the University of Mass in Amherst. I'm proud to say I went there. I got a very good education in Weymouth High School. But that's when you had teachers that were coaches. Now they can't get teachers to coach. They have to get people that are in the private sector who half the time are incompetent and they're doing it for their own ego. We've known this for years and years. It's just a little thing. But I'm just baying at the wind. I want to tell you something here about one of the things that I find really interesting. Here's 3 short sentences. We're told let's get back to international, okay? We're told not to judge all Muslims by the actions of a few lunatics. But we are encouraged by the media and by the Democratic Party especially to judge all gun owners by the actions of a few lunatics. This is how this weave of the leftists, of the socialists, of the deep down, they don't even know it, they're so stupid. They're anti-America. They're anti our basics. We're not perfect. But we've got young men and women right this minute in harm's way all over the world so that I can be on this television show and talking the way I'm talking, so that you can go down and get an ice cream at Ziggy's, so you can get in your car this weekend and go anywhere you want to go. And don't forget it. That's because we have these young men and women in offices all over the world keeping the peace. And what do we have? We have college professors making $200,000 and $300,000 and $400,000 to teach 2 courses. Not all of them, but they make darn good money, and then stand on their bully pulpit with impressionable minds, impressionable kids, knowing, by the way, that what they write and how they say it is how their grade's going to be, which is another immoral, should be illegal practice. But these liberal college professors, and there's too damn many of them, are bad-mouthing their own country. It's been going on for far too long. And because they're in the tank with the newspapers, it will never change. I told you about Harvard. You know, this pompous, wonderful school, and it is. It's a very good school. But administratively it doesn't cut it with me. Not long ago came to mind, well, it is. George Bush II was in, president. You won't remember this. That's why I tell you this, because the papers don't. If they print it, it's over on the deep right-hand corner. Harvard refused to allow recruiters on their campus. Those handsome, beautiful, wonderful young people, young men and women serving their country, dressed to the nines in their Marine Corps uniform or their Navy or their Army or their Air Force, spit and polish, shine shoes. They're trying to encourage other young people to give to their country. Harvard deemed that that was not what they wanted because they didn't believe in our war. They didn't believe in our war. They didn't believe, never mind the war, they didn't believe in our young people that are over there so they can muck it up on the Charles River in a boat race. Fortunately, we had a Republican with a few guts in there, not another Democrat, although Jack Kennedy would have done this. He was a Harvard grad, and they never would have had the guts to do this if Kennedy was president. And that's the truth. Bush informed Harvard if they wanted to continue to get federal assistance, which is another sham. They've got like $57 billion in endowment funds. And they get tax credits from us. So does everybody else in there. There's another sham of the elite, which is what Trump is pointing out too, because he's not in the tank like all of them were, just for votes. Democrats, Republicans alike. They are a disgrace in general. Nice people when you meet them socially. I knew a lot of them. I spent a lot of time with them. I still like them personally. I don't like them politically. Period. So George Bush informs Harvard that if they wanted to continue to get federal funding, they were to allow recruiters on the campus. Now, of course, they allowed every transsexuals or gays or any other minority. They could have a booth and hand out the abortionists, hand out flyers. Everything was fine with Harvard. And they were so committed to their beliefs. Guess what happened? They folded in 2 seconds over the money. And they soon allowed the recruiters back on. And guess why nothing happens? Because our politicians, George Bush, John Kerry, Bill Clinton, the Kennedys, they go to Harvard, they go to Yale, they go to all these mucky-muck colleges, and heaven forbid they criticize them. Heaven forbid they point out the shamefulness of something that deep. Colleges and churches receive tremendous tax credits, tax write-offs, tax discounts. based on 200 plus years ago. They were given no tax bills because when we were a farming community, we were a fledgling nation, people, first of all, went to church, believed in a higher power and a God, and tried to live according to the 10 Commandments, which, by the way, we've been so wise as to make sure public buildings can no longer have the 10 Commandments on them. You know, rotten things, offensive things like thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not covet. All those terrible, terrible, offensive things. Thanks to today's politicians, can no longer be on our public buildings. But they don't have any trouble when there's trouble going to the police departments, going to the fire departments, going to the if there's a riot, the National Guard. Don't have any trouble with that. Where are they? We need them. But because they own the Boston Globe and the Herald and the rest of them, nothing is ever done. And people like me are regarded as crazy, just angry. Bet your life I'm angry. But it's frustration. When I think of the people today, when I think of Harvard, the money they have, the money they make, what they charge parents, how difficult it is for American citizens to get into Harvard without knowing somebody, and then it's not known how much money foreigners come up with and give Harvard that goes right into their kitty. You don't think some of those Arabs, you don't think somebody to get their kid in Harvard from Saudi Arabia wouldn't cough up a couple of million? Bet your life they would, and they have for years. And who am I? I'm just this former school teacher, restaurateur, talk radio nut. They've done it, you know, talk radio is vilified, those of us in the conservative line, but because the country doesn't want the truth anymore. They don't want to hear the truth, except the ones now that know that what we've got has failed miserably. Right now it's failed. Now, it hasn't failed for those up in the upper echelon, but even they see how they are impacted. I was telling somebody today, I don't know, they're talking about this illegals, Kenny. I was saying, I remember this. This is at least 10 years ago when I talked about it on the radio. Think about the insanity of this. This is liberal Democrats, ladies and gentlemen. You know, don't go looking anywhere. This is liberalism, and it's liberal Democrats who are in control because the feel-gooders and the voters buy into it and make us look like we don't care. HUD, Housing and Urban Development, paid for by you and me. The cabinet position, I believe, 10 years ago, someone had the temerity to look into who was living in the HUD buildings in California. 65% of the residents were illegal immigrants in California. Now, who's to say? I mean, I'm sure it's also being done elsewhere. But this president and you Democrats think we should have more illegals coming into this country. You think there's nothing wrong with it. Our courts are filled with problems. We have American citizens being killed, maimed by illegals. But like this step one says, we can't possibly, coming right from the chief, we can't be letting people think all Muslims are lunatics because of the actions of a few. I understand that. But every time there's a shooting, now look at how'd you like to be a police officer? Where are you cops anymore? Is the union getting you increases in pay? You Boston cops that got a 25% increase which was immoral, and I love police officers. I wouldn't do the job, but enough is enough. There should be a limit to raises. 25% they got last winter when people are losing their homes, losing their jobs. And even Menino complained about it, said he tried to, I guess they lowered it. Insanity. But how'd you like to be a cop? Is money enough? You want to stick with the Democrats that are upholding all this black behavior, and that's what it is, black behavior in inner cities? Where every time there's a crime done by someone black to a police officer, black or white, don't make it racist. I don't know what the percentage now of black officers is in Boston. It's pretty darn high, as well it should be. I don't have a problem with that. But I have a huge problem with this political correct crap that has got us into this horrible mess. Now, here's another one here. It seems we constantly hear about how Social Security is going to run out of money. When's the last time you ever heard that welfare or food stamps or EBT cards that are being so documentary abused up in Boston? Where are all you Irish politicians about this? Oh, no, you're Democrats. You can't possibly clean up the mess, can you? You might lose a few votes. You might clean up the mess, but you might lose some of those minority votes. You don't even know that 2/3 of those minorities don't vote anyway, unless, of course, the Democratic Party picks them up in vans and brings them there and tells them who to vote. I know I'm coming down hard as a former Democrat. You bet your life I am. It's a disgrace, and I hope more people start doing what I'm doing. If I get fired, so what? I'm not getting paid anyway. Right, Kenny?
I won't fire you. I won't fire you.
How come that is? Now, let's look at this about further insanity, Kenny. Where does Social Security come from, by the way?
Well, it's supposed to be the money that was taken.
Never mind that. Don't do that. It isn't supposed to. Where does Social Security come from?
The taxpayer.
It comes from the wage earner. It's not supposed to. Social Security is taken out of all of our checks for years and years and years. No, you didn't. You said, well, it comes from, excuse me, I don't mean to bite you, but this is what I mean about people, they change the go right at it. Where's the money come from, Social Security? It's taken out of our kids' checks. Everyone that's working is paying into Social Security. On top of that, their boss, their company, their town is matching it. That's where Social Security comes from. And yet we're threatened by these nitwits in Washington that it's going to run out. Where's welfare come from? Us. What do we get for it? Zero. Do I want welfare? You bet your life I want to help people who need it. That's why it was there. How come there's no difference there? Social Security is a paid-into program, and we're being threatened by the politicians who have it, their grubby hands on it. But when it comes to giving free EBT cards, free cell phones, free food stamps, where they can buy booze, and because heaven forbid, one of the do-good, feel-good liberals decided it was very unfair to question these people when they were as to what they could and couldn't buy. Anyway, excuse me, Kenny, did you want to now say it? I bit your head off.
It's okay, Don. You're on a roll, bud.
I am.
You're on a roll.
And I'm going to continue rolling as long as I can.
An observation while you take a sip of your coffee.
Yes.
The observation would be that every time there is a presidential election, they say that they're going to have to do something about cutting Social Security to make those of us that are retired fearful that we're going to lose the only thing that we have to count on right now to live. And then you hear the other party say, oh no, we're not going to cut that. But if you elect a Republican, we're going to cut it. And that's the part that irritates me.
Well, it doesn't irritate.
They hold us a day at every election.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter because, again, a Democrat is going to vote Democrat because they want to be seen as a winner. See, this is the other thing that drives me crazy, is so many Democrats I know, I never voted because I had a D next to my name. I voted because I thought the person was the best person. I voted for several Republicans over the years. I was a Reagan Democrat, proud of it. But you get nice people who don't want to rock the boat. You see, Kenny? They don't care about that. And I keep talking about, for this country to really change, the women have to change how they think in voting. They have to. Over 50% of the vote is women's vote. Wonderful, hardworking. And that's another thing I love about Trump. He's drawing a lot of women, despite dumping on, justifiably, Rosie O'Donnell, who's a piece of you-know-what. And I don't care whether you like that or not, she is. And not because she's a lesbian, but because she's an unhappy person and has been. And I've said this before, I don't care if you're a comedian, a politician, an athlete. If you look in the mirror in the morning and you don't like what you see, you don't like what color you are, you don't like how you look physically, you're heavy, you're fat, you're whatever, and you hate the world because of it, and you go out there and bring that into the job market and expect me to rectify it, I won't do it. But liberals do. Oh, they have it so good. It's not about compassion. It's about enabling some, and they do it with their own kids. We've got now, I believe, part of our problem is that Vietnam era when we had these flag-burning nitwits, and now it's their kids that are in there. And I don't like war, but I don't like people who what they did to our soldiers that came back from Vietnam was again, immoral. I believe we're paying for that. Your own soldiers, spitting on them. They should have taken every one of them and whipped them in public. They should have. But that's not going to happen. Well, finally, the third thing, we are cutting benefits for our veterans. Speaking about the service. No pay raises for our military, and cutting our army to a lower level than before World War II. How'd that work out, by the way, liberal Democrats? Of course, you're not old enough to remember, and I was just a little kid, but if you read history, this is what I mean about what a teacher's doing today in the classroom, speaking about history. And what are these politicians learning, okay? We've got, on the one hand, think about how idiotic this president is and the Democrats that are following him. And I don't do that to presidents, but this man is really he doesn't have it. Never has. No background, no understanding, and surrounds himself with yes people, has fired more and more generals, more high admiral, more people who know because they didn't follow along with him. But here we've got, on the one hand, this goes along with these three steps of idiocy. On the one hand, we've just signed or trying to sign a treaty, which again the Democrats especially are going to fold under because they're either he's got something on them or they're just incapable of doing the right thing. This treaty for a nuclear bomb to Iran, of course, Kerry, Obama, most of them, they'll be dead, by the time anything can be done. But that's not so, because they probably already got one anyway. But on the one hand, we are giving a known enemy of ours, a known enemy of our only beacon, Israel, who will have to attack them. And John Kerry and others didn't even know that the contract consisted also that if anyone attacked Iran, we would have to defend Iran. Now, how do you, I keep wondering about the Jewish population in this country, again, that continue to stay Democrat. They continue. Charles Schumer, all of them. What is it? What is it that they don't get? Their own people are the only democracy in the whole Middle East. And they are basically putting them in a worse situation they've been in since they had to have that war back in the 60s. But on the one hand, this is what we're doing to encourage and open up possibilities of war. Getting back to my statement, on the other hand, we're going to have a lower amount of armed services than before World War II.
Correct.
Yeah. Isn't that great? That's like knowing you're going to have a sale in your store on Saturday, so you send half your help back home. I mean, would anybody do that without thinking they were out of their minds? No. Now, of course, the elites, both Republican and Democrat, and especially those $1 million paid TV commentator experts, they say, well, advanced technology doesn't require as much manpower as it once did. Now, there's some, of course, viability to that. However, how come it doesn't apply to the IRS employees, the government employees, the employees in the Pentagon? Isn't it funny? Schools, police, we've got more and more computers doing more and more teaching than the individuals, but you lay off a teacher and all hell breaks loose. It's just amazing how they use the whole situation to feed their own, selfishness. But think about this, okay? We are not stopping payments to illegal aliens, such as monthly payments for each child, money for their housing, food stamps, free education, including college, and also the right to vote. The wonderful liberal Democrats want illegals, folks. Think about it. Why have a legal system? Why have a legal system? How fast would you get thrown out of Fenway Park or Gillette Stadium if you didn't have a ticket? Why can't you just raise hell? What about the Channel 5 News? Why don't they go out there and speak up for that person that went into Fenway Park or into where the Celtics are playing without a ticket? What's the difference? Not only should they, I guess, be able to go in without a ticket, but give them also a free hot dog and a free beer. Now, they didn't pay for any of that, but liberals, we've got to help. What's the difference? We're not talking about people like my father and grandparents who had to have a job in order to come here. They had to have a sponsor first. They had to have good health. They had to pass a physical. Oh, that's terrible. We've got billions of dollars in health care going to illegals now who are also bringing in nice little things like tuberculosis, malaria, things that we haven't had, we've cured in this country 50 years ago. But liberals, you've got the answer here. You're kinder. You're better people than terrible, uncaring people like me. And you're the ones they elect. And that goes back to my pleading with the women vote to stop thinking with your heart because there are children involved or because there's a wife carrying her child and you are going to say we can't do it. How would you like if somebody came down to your house, you've got 2 or 3 kids, and somebody comes down in a van, drops off 4 more kids and says, here, you're going to take care of them. You're going to pay for their medical and you're going to feed them. What would you do? You'd think it was insane. But you see, this is when it applies to you. Then all of a sudden, you're not quite as kind. Somebody comes in and drops 2 babies off with you. Oh, they're pretty cute. But then they tell you you're going to have to take care of them. Oh, no. Well, wait a minute. That's what we're doing. That's what the whole country's doing. And you people that have kids that I know and I have that are in their 20s or 30s or now 30s and 40s, and they're working. And they're trying to bring up a family. Who's helping them? Now you got those kids that didn't have to pay, your teenagers. They have to pay, they have money taken out for health care now. We never had to pay for health care. You didn't probably, you parents. Why? Because medicine told us that the chances of young people being ill with anything really serious were very slight. That they shouldn't be paying. And they were only making certain money. Now they're paying. Why? So that you, kind liberal Democrats, can make sure that illegal people in this country get free health care. And I'm the lunatic. I'm the nasty person for talking like this. Well, anyway, we didn't have any calls, Kenny. I guess I'm just either putting them to sleep or mesmerizing them, but
as I told you,
yes,
I run into people in the community, and they're so engaged with what you're talking about. They're not going to call unless you ask them to call.
Oh, that's all right. As long as you know, ladies and gentlemen, that, believe me, I do shut up when someone calls, and I do try very. I've never hung up, and I try very hard to let everyone get their say. Here's something that was in the Denver Post, written by the way, Tina Grigo. She's a freelance reporter. She also happens to be Mexican, of Mexican origin. Came here legally. And this is one of the arguments that you'll hear from these experts on immigration. It just boldface, panging at your heart liars. One of the things it said, what are you going to do? Like Trump wants to ship them back. And you listen to everybody. Even, I'm so disappointed with Charles Krauthammer, who I think is brilliant. But he's of the elite. See, it doesn't matter at that level, you know. It's just a joke. It's like the Red Sox playing the Yankees. You know, they're all overpaid. They play kids' games, and they go off on their merry way. That's what these athletes do. Don't hand me about how wonderful. That's what the world is. Well, these politicians, these TV, it doesn't matter what party they are. That's what's been so great and why it's resounded with the listening public. You don't have to like Trump, but I'll tell you, you got to be really dumb if you don't hear the truth in what he's saying about every one of these politicians is in the tank. They've taken money and they then are committed to do and continue with Main Street businesses. I don't mean Main Street businesses. That's who gets screwed. Small business America doesn't have anybody for them. They can't afford to pay the politicians. But big business and big unions, especially the public employee unions. You don't think they bought off the Democrats for years and years? Take a look, I've said this before, a former teacher, 12 years. Take a look at who's on the cover and who's inside the Mass Teachers Association magazine that goes out monthly for year after year after year. Even though those teachers are teaching kids of independents and Republicans, they have no trouble. This is another lovely thing about the union mentality and the Democratic mentality. They have no trouble focusing on only one political party when they represent all of us and all of the parents. But heaven forbid we only have Christianity in the classroom, even though we allow others. But they can't do that. Isn't that again, another upside down, inside out reality? Heaven forbid you focus on the God that we had, the religion we had, that made this country great. Now you've all fallen for that crapola that you can't have Christmas celebrations in schools or on public property, even though we're 70+% of the population. Anyway, here's the idea that they've converted. How much time we got? We got a little bit.
8 minutes.
I'll end with this thing. This is what I mean about the truth versus all of the feel-good liberal crap that doesn't work, by the way. Show me one liberal program that's worked, and I'll show you haven't got the true figures. Not one. Now, it doesn't mean liberals haven't done good things. It means, on the long haul, have the programs worked. Just mention it. Welfare, food stamps, anything where there's free money. Okay, 20 million illegal aliens. What if they vacated America? This particular Tina Grigo, she writes this column titled Mexican Visitors Lament. And it has to do with, she said, I went, everybody says, oh, they've been saying, illegals pay rent, they buy groceries, they buy clothes. What happens to your country's economy if 20 million people go away? So she goes and she gets facts, you see? Not feelings that the liberals go, oh. And the women, unfortunately, that's where you respond, women, too many, feelings, not facts. Oh, heaven forbid facts, change your ability to cry and feel bad for people. All right, the honest answer is over 80% of Americans demand secured borders and illegal migration stop. 80%. That's how the vote is now. What are the politicians doing? Both parties. Zippo. Why? Trying to get the minority vote. They're criminal. These politicians are immoral and criminal. They're not doing what we want. 80% now. That's black. We're talking about legal people, Americans of all colors, all religions. This isn't 80% white America. This is 80% Americans. In California, if 3.5 million illegal aliens moved back to Mexico, it would leave an extra $10.2 billion to spend on overloaded school systems, bankrupt hospitals, and overrun prisons. It would leave highways cleaner, safer, and less congested. Everyone could understand one another as English became the dominant language again. It's all facts. She's looked all this up. They're not spending money that keeps our economy going. They're sucking us dry. In Colorado, 500,000 illegal migrants, plus their 300,000 kids and grandkids, would move back home, mostly to Mexico. They would save Colorado an estimated $2 billion. Other experts say as much as $7 billion annually in taxes. That pay for schooling, medical, social services, and incarceration costs. It means 12,000 gang members would vanish out of Denver alone. Colorado would save more than $20 million in prison costs and the terror that those 7,300 alien criminals set upon local citizens. Denver officer Dan Young and hundreds of Colorado victims would not have suffered death, accidents, rapes, and other crimes by illegals. Now remember the hoopla? They've got you so mesmerized in Massachusetts, it's controlled by liberal Democrats. The hoopla when Trump came out and talked about the rapes and all, then all of a sudden facts came out. Facts. Just like this gal's talking about the city of Denver. In Florida, 1.5 million illegals would return the Sunshine State back to America, the rule of law and English. In Chicago, Illinois, 2.1 million illegals would free up hospitals, schools, prisons, and highways for a safer, cleaner, and more crime-free experience. Chicago's broke, by the way, bankrupt. We've had to bail out a lot of these major cities. Why? Because they don't have the money to take care of illegals. But we're so smart in Massachusetts, run by Democrats. We have Martha Coakley say, technically in Massachusetts, illegal isn't illegal. And she got away with that. Yeah. Get pulled over and you don't have your registration. What do? Pound your car. You don't have your license? Arrested. Why should that be illegal? Go down to town hall, get a dump sticker. You got to pay for it. You got to show your license or your residency. Not to vote, though, thanks to the Democrats. It's too unkind. What do you mean unkind? The real reason is the truth of the matter that liberal Democrats want people to vote who aren't here legally. And they are willing to put you in the poorhouse. The Democratic Party leadership is willing to put you in the poorhouse in Plymouth. You people working 2 jobs. You people trying to save money so your kids can go to college. You people driving a used car. Or the husband driving an old pickup, and the wife has another car, just so you can save money to put the kids through school. Then it comes time for them to go to school, and you're making too much money, so you don't qualify for the financial aid. But the parents who didn't do anything, for some kids in the class who hardly ever showed up, they get a free ride. That's liberalism. That's your Democrats. I know I'm coming down hard on them. As a former Democrat, I have a right to, because I've seen the rot that's happened inside that party. Nice people, not nice when it comes to doing things that are right. I'm going to finish, too, by the way, with my usual quotation from Martin Luther. Martin Luther, like I said, I was appalled to find out that kids in Carver that I employed, I used to own the Cranebrook restaurant, which is closed for a variety of reasons. The biggest one was the taxes went from $4,160 to $10,300 in 4 years. No town sewerage, no town water, no natural gas line. I had to have propane. Nice town. Now they're going to be building buildings. I don't know who's going to afford the tax increases there. I don't know how some of you in Plymouth afford it. 70% of your property tax goes to schools. Then it's going to continue on and on. Is it all for the kids? What about the people out there working, trying to pay their way? Well, Martin Luther, most people don't know who he was anymore because, of course, he was a Roman Catholic priest that took on the whole church. Cowardice asked the question, is it safe? Expediency asked the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? And there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular. But he or she must take that position because his or her conscience tells them it is right. Let's start doing the right thing, right? Not just what's good for us or our kids or whatever. Try to do something the right. Anyway, God bless you. Thanks for listening to The Ranter. But I hope there's more of this. I want to hear more talk at the coffee shops and less hand-wringing and saying, oh, what can we do? Have a wonderful weekend. I'm Don McKeag. Thank you, Kenny Bukes. God willing, we'll be back here next Thursday, same time, same station, 6 to 7. Night now.